Hello and welcome. I'm Bruce Walter with Unilock Midwest, part of the contractor services team. And what that means, it's a division of Unilock that is strictly here in place to assist the contractors in training on individual job sites. What I'd like to discuss with you today is a job site layout. So there's been some advancements in the ability to lay out. It is critical. It's one of the first things that the homeowner sees in its backyard is the layout process. So it's your first opportunity to impress that homeowner specifically in his backyard that he has hired the right company, that you are the right company to execute and deliver that product. Typically a job site is laid out off of a plan, right? Plans can get very diverse. The key things to notice about a plan are some coordinates. Sometimes it's off of a structure that you're going to measure a distance away from that structure, and then also perpendicular to that structure as well. So it can get a little bit complicated, all right? Here's a commercial plan with a lot of detail associated to it, both in plan view as well as some elevation details that might give you that specific information as well. So it's how we read this two-dimensional plan and begin it to bring it to life in a 3D fashion. Historically, if we look back, this is oftentimes found in some of the tech guides. So there's a few things on these plans that you're going to see. One of the things that I like to do is they've done a hard paint spray here on this interior edge, which is the paver edge, and then they're doing a dash line on the exterior. I also like that, both lines. However, at this point on the installation, I'm more concerned about laying this material out and having a hard line here on the exterior. So I almost impact my technique as the reverse of what you would see here. But the important thing is that we've got an identifiable benchmark. So here in this door opening, we're laying out that patio strictly right off of that corner of that patio edge, all right? We'll take dimensions both in away from that structure itself, as well as a range of distances here. Back in the day, this is one method to achieve that, all right? The hose layout. Early on, patios and hardscape installations were simple and you could get away with this technique. I know about 30 years ago, a homeowner wanted, I had a plan in front of him, he wanted to see what that plan actually looked like in his backyard. So I tried this technique of laying out the garden hose. Well, hoses back 30 years ago tended to kink a little bit, and quite honestly, this was not an easy transition. So I didn't really communicate what that homeowner was actually looking for. It was more kind of an embarrassment on my end. So I recognized the fact that my first opportunity to really impress this installation to that homeowner, I kind of stumbled a little bit. So let's take a look at current advancements of your opportunities for layout. So as we advance ourselves, take a look at some of the vertical features that you now see in the backyard installations. Here on our plan, we've got a 3D U-Vision plan that we've created here. Not very complicated, but it is showing a little bit more detail, obviously, than the kidney-shaped patio that we had 30 years ago. So with the advancement of vertical features, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, et cetera, there's a lot more involved in a layout application. Specifically here, even on a hot tub, typically that might be supported on a concrete base. You might want to lay that out accurately, again, based on numbers away from the structure, and then a perpendicular range here in your y-axis, if you will. So this is one simple way here, and what I do like about some of the 3D programs that are available on the designer's end is that you have the opportunity to overlay that with this grid pattern. So now, instead of me taking a scale and some level of measurement from that structure away, all right, we're able to basically, in the hands of an inexperienced installer, basically have him count that number of grids to achieve that number. So this is one installation technique that I think is relatively simple to read and translate to both the numbers that you're looking for as far as the distance away from structure, and then that range, that XY coordinates that are important in every installation. I'd like to actually lay that job out with you guys today, but before we go out and do that specific installation, I want to go over this rule of thumb here, and I think I could present that a little bit more effectively here. 3-4-5 rule is basically the ability to attain a perpendicular line, all right? So the 3-4-5 means that I'm going to measure that, multiply that in certain situations. So it's not that it's 3 feet, 4 feet, or 5 feet, but potentially the further out that I go, the more accurate this dimension can become. So again, if I'm 3-4-5, potentially I want to do 6, 8, 10. On the installation that we're going to have on this plan, we're actually going to use a bigger number. We're going to try to maximize that 3-4-5 rule with a multiplier that will work for us to best achieve accuracy on this layout. So with that being said, a few tools that I want to bring with me outside. I'm going to have rebar stakes. I like using rebar stakes, quite honestly, to assist me in drawing oftentimes a nylon line. What that does, I can transition these layout stakes to potentially use that as a grade stake to then establish my elevation. So I can multi-purpose basically that same stake. A lot of ways to do that. You might individually in your company have some other means, recognizable wood stakes and things like that. Spray paint, obviously marking paint definitely has been the improvement over hose layout, if you will. I like 2 colors of paint because it identifies different features so that I can communicate with that crew exactly what they should be doing. So remember in that earlier drawing with that dotted line, I like using a different color paint so that my crew behind me is doing the excavation in accordance with that extra color in maintaining that outside edge. A few other things, obviously tape measure, mallet there to drive in our stakes so it'll draw tension off of the nylon line. But at this point, why don't we step outside and advance this into an actual layout installation. Welcome to the outside of our Utrecht Training Center. This is an area that we can create this hypothetical layout on our job site. Now we're going to use that back wall and specifically that service door as our benchmark, as our starting point on this layout. We're also going to establish this perpendicular side. Obviously we don't have that in real world, but here we're going to lay out a 3-4-5 perpendicular line to be able to achieve that point of reference too. With me, I think it's important that an accurate layout is done by 2 people. It can specifically be done by 1 person, but when you're taking numbers at distances over several feet, you want somebody else holding that tape measure. And with me today, I'd like to invite 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 into the program here to assist me on this layout. Jim's never laid an installation out before. He's going to hold the plan in hand, and I'm going to call back to Jim from time to time for some various numbers. Now again, I love this simplification that we've got here with this grid overlay. So an explanation with Jim, pretty much the questions going to be asking for him for measurements. He's going to be able to basically do a number count. Also on our plan here, it's important to establish that scale. So here I've identified this scale. 1 box is going to be 2 feet by 2 feet, basically 4 square feet if you're doing a volume calculation. But for scale purposes, every grid box is going to represent 2 linear feet, both in the X coordinate as well as the Y. So with that being said, let's get started on this. Again, we'll start in this service door location here. I'll turn plan around so it's facing real world. We'll identify this point, run our perpendicular line. Also relevant to this installation right away is going to be that radius point. So we're fortunate here that we don't have to scale those points. The design community that put this together has already established those reference points for us. With that being said, Jim, the plan is yours. I do want to check on that plan, Jim, what does that door opening show, just for reference of scale? That door shows 3 feet.
3 feet.
At that point. And we'll double check our measurement here on this door opening. And we're at 36 inches on this door opening. So this is our starting point basically for our job site layout. Now I want to establish that X coordinate in that direction against the foundation of the house. Jim, if you'll hold that tape measure here. Jim, what's my distance on that patio?
16?
16 feet. Okay. That being said, I'm going to create my mark here on that foundation line at 16 feet. This is the corner, inside corner of that job site plan here. With that being said, I need to now establish a perpendicular line off of this point. To do that, I'm going to use that 3-4-5 rule, which means here in this application, in this distance of wall, I'm going to have Jim mark me at 15 feet. So Jim, I'm going to pull you 1 foot my way. Please mark that foundation at 15 feet. All right, good.
All right.
Mark that foundation as low as you can at 15 feet. Okay. Jim, come over here and hold your tape measure on this side. Now again to that 3-4-5 rule. I'm going to begin to use the spray paint to assist me in the marking. So I'm going to recognize that I need 20 foot in this distance away from the foundation. And I'm going to create basically an arc to do that. All right, now I need the intersecting line at 25 feet in order to achieve the math on that 3-4-5 perpendicular. Jim, if you go back to your original mark, please. Here, I'm going to identify 25 feet. Come in, and I recognize the fact that the spray paint may be plus or minus an inch or two. I'll get a little bit more accurate measurement here, but this intersecting point now is where we want to achieve a draw line to establish that. How do we do that? Let go. Get the line. All right, I've driven in this stake just far enough that if we apply slight tension to it, it won't move. It's not like a grade line where we really need high tension. For a layout line, it can be just penetrated in just enough to achieve some soft tension. Jim, if you will, you're going to take this line.
I'm going to take it.
Come on out here. You're going to hold right here, and you're going to keep tension on it, and I'm going to spray paint the whole line. Okay. Okay. This is our distance. Now I'm going to direct Jim to the intersection of these two. You're going to be down, over this way, slightly, back, back. Okay, that's good. So I'm centering that line off the intersection of these two. Stay there, and I'm going to paint this as my perpendicular line. Okay. Jim, what's the distance in that patio on the exterior edge? You can let go. 21 feet?
21 feet?
21 feet. So my distance away from the structure at 21 feet. Right here. This is the outside corner of our patio. With that being said, this is a line that I want to transfer some measurements to. So we're going to also create a mark at 21 feet from the structure on the far side. Okay, now we want to develop that line. This is going to be a line that we're going to take measurements to be able to achieve the outside range of that patio. So to achieve that, we're again going to drive our stake in at that 21 foot. Okay. Wind our line. Why don't you take the line all the way down to the other stake position. We're 21 feet parallel to the structure at this point. Apply a little bit of tension, please. And through here. Now, what I want to achieve is this center point on that radius that is going to contain the seat wall area. Jim, if you don't mind while I'm spraying this, will you give me that distance of the overall length?
40 feet?
40 feet. Okay, you can let go for a minute. We have a distance of 40 feet that we're going to achieve. Like many of you, you have a 50-foot tape measure in your back pocket, I'm sure of that. Jim, if you don't mind taking that back to the far corner so that I can measure the center point on this radius. And this is our center point here at 40 feet, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to keep this in sight because I'm going to refer to several numbers off of this. Jim, on our curve, how far away from the corner is that to the outside point?
2 feet.
2 feet. At what distance?
10 feet.
At what distance? 10 feet out?
10 feet out.
Okay. So we know as that patio curves out here, oftentimes we don't have the ability to create a center radius point for that. So I recognize that at 10 feet away from the corner of that patio, the furthest point out, away from the structure, is at 10 feet, and that point is here at 2 feet. Now, Jim, where does that outside curve reconnect with our 21-foot line?
18 feet in.
18 feet? At 18 feet, it is going to reconnect with that line. So here, basically going to create an outside point, and I'm going to freehand this back to Jim according to plan. Okay, it's going to scale up back in. Jim, how far is that come to the farthest point towards the structure?
1 foot in at 23 feet.
23 feet, we're going to be 1 foot in. Okay. Very good. At what point does that reconnect to 21 feet?
29 feet.
At 29 foot distance, we come back to our 0 point here. Okay. Very good. If you don't mind, at this point, I'd like to lay out that radius with you, Jim. So I know we're gonna lay out a radius of 8 foot based on this center point here. I like to use the center stake to be able to achieve that. And it helps Jim actually hold that end of the tape measure so that we can get an accurate distance and an accurate spray. Now, Jim, if you'll hold me here, and then we're gonna rotate around that stake at 8 feet. Okay, while we're in this area, one of the things that I'd like to do is lay out the seat wall it's on the exterior perimeter of this 8 foot radius. So while we're here, we're gonna do another spray line plus 1 foot. Now, that's the position of the wall itself. So I wanna include the overdig area, which means I'm gonna spray out at 10 foot. Okay. Very good, kid. I'm going to do a connecting point. Jim, at what point does the away from 21 does that occur? The intersection of this curve to our radius?
26 feet.
26 feet would be that. However, what distance away from 21 feet does that create? So we're looking for this number right here. I see 2.5 spaces, meaning 3 feet. So at 3 feet, this is the intersection here that we're going to take our patio edge to. Okay, Jim, what's the overall distance on the structure side? 41 feet?
41 feet.
Okay, why don't you grab the other end of that tape measure? So our distance of this patio is 41 feet from corner to corner. We're going to transfer that mark and create this last exterior edge. There's our exterior edge. Okay, Jim. We've got a few last points to make here on this short side of this patio. It's going to be one true curve. It's going to be dimensioned away. So what is this number at 2 feet? Okay. So we've got a radius of approximately 12 feet. All right. We're able to achieve that radius here by simply measuring 12 feet away. So Jim, if you'll hold my tape measure and that distance at 12 foot, right about there, to me a little. Okay, hold that please down. All right. And I'll transition that into our outside edge of the patio. So that's a simple installation technique. Now, Couple things. I'd like to transfer over to a different color so that when the crew comes in to begin excavation, they actually see a different color that they're going to be creating that overdig area. So the overdig area that I like to use is going to be specifically 1 foot. With that being said, I'll take this paint out. I'll stand upwind, clean that tip. Switch colors and then begin to spray paint 1 foot beyond my orange marks. So again, similar to that drawing that you saw where the dashed line was to the outside, this is really the hard line that I like to paint because this is where the shovel hits the ground. Okay. Lastly, we have one other number that we need to achieve, and that's the start and the end point on that seat wall that we have on plan. So with that, the relevant information that we're looking for are going to be the numbers in distance away from our parallel line. Okay, so here, Jim, our distance from there to there, 36 inches. Okay, so our starting and end point, basically off that line for our seat wall, it's going to be here at 36 inches. So this is the starting point for that pillar application on that seat wall. Then the ending point, Jim, off of our edge of patio, distance from the structure, we can measure that. How many feet do we have? 15 feet?
15 feet.
Okay. With that being said, we've got our number off of the structure. Jim's going to hold that to the foundation. And this is 15 feet. Again, for our pillar start. I'll sprain out. Okay, you can let go. So that's a simple layout to a simple patio. I think it's a means of communication between me and the crew that are going to start to begin the excavation process. Now, there's certain times on an installation where you need a little bit more accuracy. Our spray paint serves us well for excavation purposes, but if we're going to begin a layout of, say, that concrete pad for that hot tub application, could be a pergola structure, it could be an outdoor kitchen pad. A lot of that concrete support that you'll see in a backyard installation really needs to be defined a little bit more accurately than what we've done with our spray paint. So with that being said, I like this methodology here. Jim, you're going to hold 1 foot in again to that mark at 15. All right, we're going to reestablish that 3-4-5 rule here, but I'm just using some heavier medium to be able to accurately mark that. So here we'll use the pencil on that. Jim's going to hold me 1 foot over to 15-foot mark. All right. I'm going to remark our 25-foot curve. He's going to transfer over to here. I'll reestablish that 20-foot mark. All right. With that being said, I'll use the dry line to overlay that area right there. Okay, so some simple techniques. Hopefully you're still not using a gardening hose in your application, but If it's working for you, by all means, we're not here to suggest that you're not currently doing it correctly. We're just here to say that I think with grid systems available on plans, that it makes it a whole lot easier for the installers in the backyard to perform this task. Thanks for your time.